Hello everyone, DJ Anderson here. I wanted to shoot a quick video today on a specific tool, and this tool is the Auto Nap Blocker. And what this tool is used for is whenever you're working with things like towels or like a beanie hat, where you have like a pile or it's kind of a thicker material that you need to mat it down, so embroidery that gets stitched onto it doesn't get lost, the detail. That's where this tool, the Auto Nap Blocker, comes in. It lays down a couple stitches before the embroidery, and it just keeps any of the nap from coming out and getting exposed, so that you get a much cleaner look. And even after you launder it and things like that, it just helps to make sure that the embroidery itself stands out. And recently I saw a few posts on this of people using it inside of one of the Floriani software groups on Facebook, and was really excited to see that people are utilizing this tool. So I wanted to take a moment and just show you the ins and outs of the tool and how to properly use it. And if you experience any problems using it, this will help you to get around those issues. So yeah, as you can see, I have the software open here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this toolbar here, which I love in the new version of the software. I'm going to click on the screen, and I'm just going to type in FTC-U and hit apply. Okay, so I have lettering here, and I'm going to also duplicate this, and I utilize this tool quite a bit. Whenever something is selected, I utilize these tools around the selection bar quite often. They're very handy. So I'm just going to use this one right here. It's going to make a duplicate, and I'm just going to bring it down below it, and you'll see why in a minute. So I have text here, and when I select it, the Auto Nap tool is located up here in the kind of upper right hand corner, and you'll see that right now it's grayed out. So if I click it, nothing happens. And so this is what happens to a lot of people when they go to use this tool. They'll come up here and they'll see that it's not available. And the reason that it's not available is because I'm working with text, and text is like kind of a grouped together object that in order to utilize the Auto Nap tool, we're going to have to break apart any text. Okay, so if there's text on your screen, if you go to your sequence view and you see this red T, you can see me down in the sequence view, and it says that it's text, this prevents that from working, that tool. So in order to get it to work, I can right mouse click and I can go to break up text. Okay, before I do that, just again, look over here in the sequence view. Notice that FTCU is text. It's all grouped together. The moment I break up text, the letters become separate objects. Okay, and this is important when working with a tool like the Auto Nap Blocker. Okay, so now I'm going to select these letters, and notice that that tool is now active. That means that now I can use it. So I'm going to click on it, and it's going to create those stitches that will be sewn before the letters. So the really neat thing about this tool is it's very smart. So when I worked on developing it, I focused on, okay, so what are some of the things you have to do in order to get this to work? And the first thing is you had to create this grid pattern in the background so that it would lock down whatever nappy material you're working with. But the second of all, I wanted to make it easy for everyone. So I wanted to make sure that it automatically threw those stitches at the front of the line. So even though we already had text, it automatically threw these blocking stitches all the way up to the top, so that it became the first object that is stitched out. Okay, so one of the things you want to do when you're doing this, before you stitch it out, what I do is I make sure that I put this object in the color of the fabric. Okay, so I want to, excuse me, I want to stitch this out using a thread color that's the same color as the material that I'm going to sew the design on, because you want to knock down any of the nap, but at the same time you don't really want it to be very noticeable. You want it to do its job and prevent any of the fibers from poking through and making the design, less clear, but you don't want it to stand out. And so you want to make sure that you utilize the same color of thread as the material you're going to sew it onto. So let's just assume that this is going to be done on, let's just go over here, let's pick a color here. Let's say it's going to be done on white. So I would just make those stitches white, and then the design would go over the top of it. Okay, so that is how you can get the auto nap blocker tool to work if you're doing something like text. So now you can see that I still have this text here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and choose preserve as stitches. Okay, so when you load a design into the software, you have the ability to, if it's not something that's in a WAF format, let's say, you have this box that says convert to outlines. You have to have outlines in order for this tool to work. So if you load a design that is in like a format other than WAF, or that doesn't have any outlines to it, you must make sure that this box is checked before you open it, or you can simply hit cancel. Every time you bring in a design, I'll go up over here to a different design here. This is like one that I did years ago. You'll notice that this one says stitches. That means that this one was brought in without any outlines. So one of the things you can do is you can select the entire design. You can right mouse click, you can right mouse click on the stitches one at a time here, and you can choose to convert to outlines. So after you have a design open, if you didn't convert it to outlines to begin with, that is a way that you can do that, is select the different objects, right mouse click, and choose convert to outlines. But that's what I'm talking about. That's what it's doing, is whenever you're working with something like that just says stitches next to it, meaning you open the design without outlines, if I select it, you'll notice that I can't use that tool. So I have to convert that before I can use the tool. So I would have to right click on it and go to convert to outlines, and notice that when I do that, now all of a sudden I have all these pieces here. What the software did is it took those stitches, or the what you saw as just being called stitches, and it created outlines for them, so that now it has something, the software has something to work with. So I'm going to press undo really quick and go back to where the stitches is, and I want you to see something, because this is a great way to find out if you're in outline mode or not with objects. If I click and drag this, notice that I'm seeing like every stitch. It looks like basically the same design without the 3D view on. You can see every line. So now I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to convert to outlines. Now I'm going to drag it, and you see very little of the stitches now. Now you're seeing an outline around each letter, and that's what we want. That's what we need. So that's just a visual way you can tell if you're in outline mode or not, but again, it's going to tell you over here in the sequence view. So now that I have that selected and I have outlines for it, notice that the Auto Nap Blocker tool is now available. So now I can use it. So if I select it, it's going to go ahead and create those stitches. So that's the thing that you need to know about the Auto nap blocker. It's a great tool to use whenever you're working on towels or like a beanie hat. You would have to do this a lot whenever you're working with those, because they're so thick that if you don't put down this layer of stitches, that it will actually all the stitches will fall into it. You lose clarity. The embroidery doesn't look as sharp. So utilizing something like this really helps it. So I want to show you really quick. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And I just want to show you what this tool is actually doing. Okay, so you can see the outline here. That's the nap blocker. So I'm going to go into my slow redraw, and I'm just going to drag this across just to show you that it's creating stitches going in like a 135-degree angle, and then it's going to come back and almost like a 45-degree angle, basically like opposite of each other. And this is what's creating the webbing, and this is what's going to kind of knock everything down and hold it in place, so that when the top stitches come in, they fall right on top of it, and the towel, the nap from a towel or anything that's like a thicker material isn't going to poke through and create the embroidery to not look as clear. So yes, there are other things like heat and gone that a lot of people use underneath embroidery for towels, and that's great, and I highly recommend that. But at the same time, utilizing a feature like this is going to extend out beyond the stitches a little bit. So if you're working with a towel that has a lot of loft to it, even if you use a heat and gone, it's only going to block everything underneath of the stitches, but everything to the outside of it is not going to be knocked down. So that pile can actually come back over and kind of cover up the stitches a little bit. So even if you use a heat and gone, or when you utilize something like this, you can just use a water soluble topping. You don't even need it to be the heat and gone, because these stitches are going to keep the pile from poking through. So it's a very helpful tool, and I'm glad to see that people are utilizing it. I just wanted to show you what happens when the icon isn't selected. It's typically because you have text, or you opened a design that doesn't have outlines. All you have to do, again, if you're working with text, is break apart the text by right-clicking and doing break up text, which you'll see if you replay this video, or converting objects to outlines, opening it with the convert to outlines checked, or doing it after you open it. But those are the things you have to do if you're having issues using this tool. So I hope this video is helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.